Good. Well, we at the Civic Justice Institute are committed to fighting alcohol, and prohibition is our goal. We can work hard to close down these places selling alcohol. I'm just teasing. I'd rather be booted out there. Yeah, that'd be really bad, wouldn't it? Anyway, how many heard of the Civic Justice Institute before? Raise your hand. Okay, number of you have. What we do is we defend religious freedom, parents' rights, and other basic civil liberties. And we tackle a lot of the issues that we're facing today that really are often conflicting with traditional Christianity and the Christian worldview. And let me give you just some examples of that, but in terms of also religious freedom in particular. Like, for example, a girl decided to, during the 6th grade up in Lewis, California, decided to invite 2 of her friends to a church event. And so she gave them invitations, and the principal called her in and said, "This is religious. You can't hand this out. You have to have my permission and my consent." And it's a birthday invitation, a movie invitation, that's no problem. This is a church thing. You have to have my permission, my consent, because I'm the state. You have to have my authorization. But he didn't say exactly like that. And so this girl had to write an apology for doing it 3 times. And then her parents contacted us. And we, in a very friendly way, filed a lawsuit. Okay, it wasn't friendly. But we filed a lawsuit because the school district wouldn't back down on the policy. And at the end of the day, they backed down and they changed it, and it was very nicely settled. Another case was a boy who was in high school in Everett, Seattle, and he was real excited about his faith, his Christian faith. He was passing out little leaflet tracts, if you will, and with some friends, and he was punished. He suspended once, twice, 3 times, and he had a pending permanent expulsion. And then we were contacted at the Civic Justice Institute. We filed a lawsuit. Went to federal court just 3 weeks ago, and the federal judge, he's suspense, so I'm using the pause. And the federal judge ruled in favor of the boy and said it was unconstitutional for them to punish him for handing out materials. And the court pointed out, they said, well, if the only thing he can pass out is what he himself writes, is what they said, then he couldn't pass out a copy of the Constitution of the United States. And they said, yes, that's right, Your Honor. And at that point, we were in a very good position. Anyway, judges usually respect the Constitution in one way, shape, or form. So we have filed, so we prevailed in that case. That was a wonderful success. We also see some overt challenges in our public schools that are pushing things that a lot of parents out there would object to. How many of you guys have kids? Anyone? Very good. How many eventually will? No, probably all of you. Okay. Most of you. Anyway, well, public schools have really changed, and they're going to be more and more challenging as the worldview shifts, very diametrically opposed to a biblical worldview. There's a greater chasm between the Vatican and the teachings of public education, and it's growing. And let me give you an example. Over in I guess it's Lafayette in Walnut Creek, California, Northern California. They decided to bring in some outside representatives to put on a presentation for sex education. Now, in the old days, sex education, you find out where babies come from. It's a shocking experience. You know, this was for me anyway. But and I got over it. I had 2 kids. So, but reality is, it's a real. That's what you expect. But now things have changed in many ways. In one way is they, for example, they brought on 2 representatives from Planned Parenthood to put on a presentation to these kids about whether or not they're ready to have sex or not. They're 14-year-old kids, 13, 14-year-olds. They have a survey. And if you answer everything with a yes on the survey, that means they're ready. Now, think for a second. 14-year-olds especially boys, maybe girls, ask questions like, are you mature enough to enter a relationship? Yes. Are you ready for commitment? Yes. Are you prepared to father a child? Yes. Knowing that if you answered yes to everything, there was a big dessert at the end of the quiz, so to speak. So that was what they did. And they did it without parents knowing about it, much less parental consent. And you see, the law requires any surveys or questions with sex education, or sex, family, morality, religion, must have prior written parental consent. So we have weighed in on this. By the way, they did something else too. They brought in a presentation called the Genderbread Man, not Gingerbread Man, the Genderbread Man. Okay, and it's like a gingerbread thing, and it's called gingerbread. All different parts of the gingerbread, they introduce different kinds of gender identity. And they used to thought it was, whether you're male, you're female, or maybe you're confused. But it fits into, you can be neither, both, tri-gender. I don't even know. I figured it out now. But anyway, so this is some of the stuff they're giving 14-year-old boys and girls, and it's a part of not education, but I would call it orientation, and if you will. So it's a big concern to a lot of parents, that kind of material. Then we have it on a state level, some serious challenges. For example, those who let's say someone in early adolescence is struggling with same-sex attraction. And by the way, early adolescence, that's really not that unusual to have some kind of struggle or confusion about whether they have an attraction to the opposite sex or the same sex. They're working through that. And so it's really not that unusual. Well, these kids, oftentimes, they want to get counseling. If they want to get to some point of counseling. And they want to get counseling, oftentimes, that's parallel with their own faith and their convictions. Well, this new law in California says those kids, no matter how bad they want this counseling that's parallel with their faith and convictions, it's now illegal, banned in the state of California. That kid can't get it now. They can't get counseling from a non-licensed counselor. Someone who's had no full formal training in counseling, is not licensed counselor. That's okay. We're not going to let them have counseling from a trained, licensed counselor. Even if there's a trained psychologist who wanting to do this. We filed a lawsuit on behalf of 2 psychologists and a young man who went through this kind of counseling successfully and now wants to become a psychologist and counsel others. We got an injunction in federal court against the state of California, and then it was reversed by the 9th Circuit. Go figure. And now we're at a trial court level again, going to the litigation. So, I think in a free country, people should be able to get the kind of counseling they want, particularly if you have someone who's licensed and trained to improve and to provide competent counseling. It's very basic, very important. So the Christian Psychiatric Association is one that we've gone alongside and to advise on this. Another issue we've dealt with, it deals with transgender rights, specifically a new law that says if a boy goes to a public school and he comes to school one day and says to his teacher, "Today, I feel like I'm a girl," then he is immediately entitled, under this new law, no counseling needed, by the way, immediately entitled to use all of the opposite sex's facilities, including their bathrooms. But in junior and high school, also their locker rooms, their showers, at the same time the girls are using them. They're to be treated exactly as if they are the opposite gender. Now, gender identity dysphoria, that's a mental condition. Assuming the child is telling the truth. Assuming the child is telling the truth. Okay? I know when I was 14, I didn't think of consequences very much. Very dangerous age, I believe. But assuming he's telling the truth, he could have a condition, or she could have a condition, a girl. It's a real mental condition. And I think our society is a matter of compassion. We should be sensitive to kids who have that condition. That's actually, I believe that's a really good Christian worldview, is to have love and compassion for people where they are. Just as God has compassion on us where we are, Christ loves us and has compassion on us where we are. In the same way, I think that should be the Christian worldly response. However, we need to balance that with young people. Let's say the girl, 13 or 14-year-old girl, in a public school gym, or excuse me, in a locker room, she's taken off her clothes, she's very timid, she's about to dart to the showers, and in comes Bubba, 16-year-old, comes in, takes off his clothes at the same time. I mean, how many parents do you think would reasonably say, well, my daughter just needs to learn to be more tolerant and more accepting of other people where they are? This becomes even more problematic when you realize, and I've done the research on this on the internet, that transgender is not the same as sexual orientation, same sexual orientation attraction. Quite the opposite, actually. The majority, all studies, every study shows that the majority of all of those who have gender identity dysphoria are still sexually stimulated and attracted by the opposite biological sex. Fast forward once again into the locker room. There's a boy. Bubba takes off his clothes. He sees Nancy with all her clothes on. There's a problem there. At the very least, she's going to feel visually violated. At the very least. And it goes the same way with the girl. The girl goes into a boy's locker room. She takes off. It works out a little differently probably with boys' locker room. But you're still nonetheless have the same principle. Okay? The same principle of the feeling of being uncomfortable or having regret or the like. So in the Civic Justice Institute, we drafted an initiative to put this on the ballot so we, the people of California, the moms and dads, can go to the polls and decide whether we want this in California. Whether we want to subject our young boys and girls on one side to be potentially visually violated, and also on the other side, for boys and girls who have this confusion, to be given the red carpet in the opposite sex bathroom and locker room without parents even knowing about it. Okay? If parents object, too bad. Tough. There's a man in Irvine I found out. He's actually a Muslim father from Middle East, we'll say there. And his son has this gender identity dysphoria. He comes to school, in high school, as soon as he gets there, changes into girls' costume, girls' clothes, and uses the girls' locker room. And a lot of girls are not using the locker room anymore. They're very scared. And that's the guy going to beat them up? No. But they just feel violated, visually violated. And so that's the status quo.
It's so good.
I know how you guys are working. I left my wall to come. Man, this is good. Here we go. Wow. This is strong. Very good. Thank you. Although that dark blue was really good. Really good. Well, I'll hold off until after. But, anyway, so that's a real challenge. So we drafted a petition and to have this put on the ballot in November 2016 to be repealed. We got the signatures we needed, or so we thought. 120,000, we had like 530,000. We had 120,000 validated, leaving us 18,000 short according to the Secretary of State. So we had filed a lawsuit to challenge their finding and to get this on the ballot. What we found out is, this is our greatest state of California in terms of integrity. We found out that a lot of signatures were disqualified if the spouse printed the name and address of their loved one and then gave it to us. Hey, honey, will you sign this? I got your. She signed it. They invalidated her signature because she didn't print the name and address, and they invalidated his signature as well. So mine and my wife's were probably invalidated. And then, this is being videotaped. I was a joke, just a joke. So, another case example deals with elderly people, predominantly, where their signature looks different than it did when they registered to vote. Now, a lot of elderly people are going to be disenfranchised, right? Even one of our attorneys on staff, he's not elderly. I mean, he's like 29, okay? Far from elderly. And yet he had eye surgery. His signature has become partially blind. His signature's changed. His signature was invalidated. And he was the one that led the charge in state legislature to oppose this. So we're litigating that. And at the same time, right now we've come up with another initiative to be more proactive. And it says any public restroom in the state of California, if you're a male, a biological male, that's the restroom you use. If you're a biological female, that's the restroom you use. Period. Same applies to locker rooms, probably locker room size, and the like. And that way we respect that. People want to use a separate bathroom, like for families and for handicap. Great. I think that's fantastic. Okay? It's great to accommodate. But don't accommodate at the expense of the privacy, the basic dignity of others in the state of California. I think that's the proper balance. And so we drafted that. We're going to be getting signatures for that in a couple weeks. We only have to have 350,000 instead of 530,000, and we have 5 months to do it instead of 3 months. So hopefully we'll achieve that. That's a wonderful goal. We have a civic justice also, by the way. I love to go back to people's workplace. There's a gentleman who was fired from his job at Cal State Northridge, a scientist, because he discovered a triceratops bone that had soft tissue in it. Now, it had a peer-to-peer review journal. It validated that what he discovered was true and correct, and valid. But one of the professors and staff, whose name he is, didn't like this finding, and screamed and yelled at him. And as soon as he was appointed to be a supervisor, the head of the department, he called an emergency meeting to have our client fired. And so now we're going to file, once again, a friendly little lawsuit. Okay, anyway, we get the picture. Against Cal State Northridge, and I think we're going to settle it and not do this in the future. We also love to go to bat for workers who haven't paid union dues. How many of you by any chance pay union dues? I'm sure some of you do. We're in California. Raise your hand nice and big. Nice and big. Real tall. How do you pay union? I won't give it to you. The fact is people all the time pay union dues. Now, if you're part of a union that you believe in, that represents you and your beliefs and your convictions, fantastic. You should have the freedom and the right to be a part of that union. However, some people are in a different situation that their union supports issues, causes, or even candidates that clearly violate their beliefs and what they stand for. And so should they have to be a part of a union and support an institution that's totally against what they believe, what they stand for? Should they have to choose between having a job and their faith? Well, the good news is Title VII, a federal civil rights statute, says the answer is no, they shouldn't have to do that. And so we started something called ChooseCharity.org, which makes it easy for people to have all their union dues, every penny of it, not just the political part, I mean agency fee, fair share, all of it, diverted from their union to a charity that's in agreement with their faith and convictions. And some of you saying, Elmer, did I hear that right? Yes, Mildred, you heard that right. Oh, wait, it's the younger crowd. Okay. Austin, is that right? Yes, Hannah, that's right. Better connecting? Okay, good. Trying to think down here, all right. So, do you have any Austins in the audience? Two young. Michael, better? Anyway. Yeah, I went too far now, sorry. So anyway, so that's an exciting venture we're engaged in, which is really important. We also get involved in protecting kids from being wrongfully taken by social workers. How many know of someone who had either it's happened to you or your family, or you know of someone who had their children wrongfully taken by a social worker that they should not have taken from a family? Raise your hand, nice and big. 1, 2, 3. Any others? Well, as you get older, let's keep the older crowds, with a lot of grandparents, a lot of hands go up. And the reason is because it's very common for children to be wrongfully taken in the state of California. But some kids need to be taken to be protected, especially when their parents are drug addicts or alcohol abusers and they're not willing to change. Absolutely. Unfortunately, over 50%, over half of all the children in California that are taken by social workers are returned within 3 days. What does that tell you? It tells you a lot of kids are being traumatized and wrongfully taken and sexually examined by strangers that should not be. And this is happening all the time in California. So we provide emergency counsel to parents to keep them from wrongfully having their children taken from them. Now, what we advise having a child examined by a private pediatrician, a private psychologist, separate, leave your home, have this done, then come back to your home after you have it all, the analysis done, sent to social work. It only works if the parents aren't abusive. But I assure you, the people we've talked to are people who are not abusive. We really screen really well. So that's a real problem in California. Other states have reformed their systems to give you a jury of your peers before you permanently lose your children. In California, do you get that? No. It's all behind closed doors. Public media doesn't have access to it. O.J. Simpson had the media behind him. He can make his case. You can't have that as a parent in California. It's also whatever the social worker says the child says. So there's no requirement for audio or video taping of the child's testimony in California. You go to Oklahoma, absolutely mandated. Have to have audio video taping, so there's no distortion of what the child says. The stakes are high. California, it's whatever the social worker says what the child says. And there's a problem. We talked to social workers, CPS, that have told me they need to have reform. And there's not reform because the state of California legislatures and those in power do not want to reform because they're going to be weighing into the LGBT movement. They don't want change because that's how they get their foster kids. You understand where that the linkage there. So we have a problem in California. We can't continue to reform and we need civil rights. I talked to ACLU. And I said, hey, we can work together on this about due process reform, right? And they said, and they go back to criminals all the time for due process. And I said, we work together. They said, we're not for that kind of due process reform. I said, I see. Just the criminals. Okay. Not the parents. Lose their kids permanently. So that's another area we're involved in and engaged in. So we also go back to rights of homeschoolers, got a homeschooling case, where homeschooling is declared illegal in California. How many homeschoolers, how many kids were homeschooled here? Raise your hand. Awesome, very good, very good. I tried it for 1 year with my kids. It's a lot easier to advocate it than to actually do it. It's crazy. Especially if you have a boy that's arguing with you every time he misses a problem. Okay? Strong children, it's not the best. Maybe a three-judge panel said it was illegal to homeschool in California, unless you're a credentialed teacher. We took on the case, we appealed it, or we don't even appeal, we asked them to rehear the case. These are 3 judges. They agreed to rehear the case. And they, at the end, decided that they were wrong. Okay? It's hard for a judge to say that, I think. But they ruled against themselves, reversed, and now we have more protection for homeschooling in California than we've ever had in our state's history. And that's fantastic. We're really excited. We can talk about that if you want. Anyway, so we go back to people in the workplace, in education, schools, parents' rights, and we do so wholeheartedly for those who want their religious freedom protected. Religious freedom, by the way, is becoming more and more marginalized. As we've seen, like in the bakery case, where someone says, I don't want to bake a cake, I'll bake a cake for you, but I don't want to bake you a cake for your homosexual wedding. I mean, in our society today, we have courts, they say, you either bake that cake or you shut your bakery down. Now, irrespective of your perspective on homosexual marriage or whatever, surely in a free society, no one should have to choose between having their business and having to compromise it to support an event, that religious event that totally goes against their religious convictions. But I see a big difference between discriminating against an individual who merely wants a cake versus someone who wants you to produce something that's going to help or facilitate an event that is totally against your religious convictions. I believe that a truly tolerant society, the T word, tolerant, is one where we recognize that people do have different perspectives and it's okay. Otherwise, we don't have a free society. If tolerance only goes one way, what do we have? We don't have tolerance, it's called tyranny. Tolerance has to go both ways, we don't have tolerance. And we have a very intolerant state, the state of California, I hate to report. And so that's what we do in civic justice. We try to make sure that freedom and liberty is protected, even if people aren't politically correct, and that respect goes both ways, and tolerance goes both ways. So, that's sort of some of the things we're engaged in. I'm going to take some Q&A here because we have more cases I could talk about. The kid who couldn't bring his Bible to school, we represented him. He brings his Bible to school. The girl who couldn't sing a religious song in a talent show, we represented her. She could sing a song in a talent show. I mean, it goes go on and on. We keep very busy. We handle more case matters on the West Coast, relating to religious freedom and the rights of the autonomy of the family, than any other organization in the country bar none. We do it all without charge. You heard that right, an attorney saying the words without charge. You would probably spend the rest of your life and never have this experience ever happen again. You're with an attorney who the words without charge. That's what we do at Civic. We're a nonprofit 501c3, and we love to do that. Oh, one more case. We're right now defending a mountain cross. There's a Catholic parish down in Encinitas, and they have a cross. They put up safe, stable, engineer put it up, and the atheist is suing to have it torn down. It's a sign. The city is saying we're going to look at this as a structure, like a building. So you have to what? Get a use permit in engineering, designing, and drafting, and put two pieces of wood together and stick it in the ground and have it secure. Really? It's a sign, is what it is. And I'd like to take the trellis approach, take the trellis and the vine grow up, and it's a sign. And while I was out there, it's really interesting. I was up there meeting with the people with the group, the Catholic Charity, putting it on. To my left, I noticed, there was across to my left, I noticed a bench. And this young girl sitting on the bench in sort of a crouched position with her eyes closed. And we couldn't help but notice her while we were trying to assess the property and the legal issues. And one of the ladies in the group walked over to her and sat down and talked with her. And she was there because she didn't feel comfortable going to a church, for whatever reason. But she knows she needed God, and she was at a crossroads, a major crossroads in her life. And there she was, just doing that, having an encounter with the Lord, and His Lord was ministering to her. And I realized it's not just about the cross. It's about the freedom of liberty we should have as a people to reach out and love and the truth that we can do without being punished by a government, not like that. That's what we're about in Civic Justice Institute. So how about us with some Q&A? Who do you want us to? I mean, how can we help you? That was a joke. Let me say something about lawyers, by the way. I know everyone always bashes us, okay? We're always getting picked on. But let me make something really clear. See? He's already offended. So. But it's the 99% out there, they give us 1% of bad reputation. Because we're 90% lawyers. What are you saying, Dip? Yes, sir.
Yes, your organization bears the name Civic Justice.
Yes.
And there are two groups that are marginalized on the Pacific: undocumented workers and homeless people.
Yes.
What has your organization done to advance the justice of undocumented people and homeless?
Right. Very, very good point. Our context and our mission statement is religious freedom and parental rights, family rights. That's what we do. But I would to touch that as best I can. On the homeless side, we've gone back and defended churches that were shut down or prevented from having their homeless ministry. There's one in Placerville, for example, a church created by the community just to serve the homeless, and they shut it down. The reason the city shut it down, they said, well, it's one thing to have a church service, and that's okay, because that's a normal church function. But this stuff about giving clothes and food and nurturing and love and support, that's really not a church function. Really? Really? So we defended the church, we won, they lost. Another homeless ministries in public parks that are trying to shut them out. Cities don't want homeless. They think if they shut down and stop the ministry and benefits, the homeless will go to somewhere else. And they're right, they will. But they're going to starve and they're going to have needs in the process. Our humane society, so we go to bat for churches. Parishes are very common to do doing this, and I think that's important. I also say, personally, with the immigration issue, you have conservatives and liberals and all this stuff. I think irrespective of where you are politically on this, it's critical that we remember one thing, that human beings, based on Scripture and the example of Christ, have value and dignity and demand respect, irrespective of who they are or where they are or why they're here. And while they are here, they're entitled to be given dignity and respect and compassion. That's real important. My brother married a girl from Mexico. Could hardly speak English. She's a charismatic Catholic. Okay, I don't know if I'm a charismatic Catholic. Anyway, on fire for Jesus. Awesome. And my brother just fell in love with this girl. And I call her the Yellow Rose of Tijuana. The Yellow Rose of Texas. Because she said to him, she says, "Frank, if you do not marry Jesus, you do not marry me. He must be Lord of your life. He must be the center of your life." And my brother soon realized this is not a normal girl. And he had spent literally several days living with the priest of the parish to really reconcile whether he was going to surrender his life to the Lord and live for Jesus. And that woman, I would be truly grateful for her, because I couldn't bring my brother around her. And she did, and now she's part of our family, which is awesome. So that's the best I can answer your question on that, but I think it's a very, very good question for you asked it. Yes, sir.
On the issue of union dues, you say that you're trying to the whole Title VII thing is that all the money that would normally go to the union goes to charity.
Right.
But isn't there an argument that I understand the whole political thing, but if you're talking about just the actual dues for representing the workers, how do you deal with that argument that?
I use the argument that there are, and hey, they're getting benefits, the unions representing them, shouldn't they have to pay something? And that's the argument on the other side. And I would say that the unions should be accountable to their workers. And if the union is truly representing them, then this worker is not going to have a religious objection, a moral objection to giving dues to them. That's the qualifier. You can't just not give to the union because, I don't care. I'd rather go to a charity. That union has to do something or support something or stand for something that violates your convictions. And a lot of people, for example, are what I call pro-life. Okay? And there are a lot of unions support pro-abortion causes, pro-abortion candidates. And therefore, they feel very comfortable supporting that institution. That's an example. And also, they don't get representation anymore from a union as far as grievances. They've got to represent themselves. Or if they're a school teacher, they can have one of the associations, the American Association of Educators, come in and represent it instead. That's a different alternative. But that's right. There is another argument to that. And so, yeah, that's a good point. Good point. So, yes, sir. How do we get our income? I paid you $10 if you finally asked that question. Sorry. No. Thank you for asking that. We're a nonprofit 501c3 organization. So we get our income from moms and pops, grandmas and grandpas that believe in our work and support our work. Sometimes it's $5 a month, or whatever. Sometimes it's more. But that's how we get our income. That's how we do what we do, all without charge. I like to say we get grants from the government. My board of directors said, "Brad, you can't get grants from the government because you sue the government all the time." So there's a conflict of interest. I said, "Yeah, we used to sue the government quite a bit." So anyways, they're the big, well-funded, and we go to bat for people. Our goal is to leave no one on the side of the road, to make sure no one's left behind. That's our motto. And so far, by God's grace, we've been able to do it. So, yes, sir.
I'm wondering, how is it constitutional, or maybe it's not constitutional, but it's a law now, that a person has to, take a financial penalty if they don't want to have a long term?
Oh.
How's
it constitutional for someone to have to take a financial penalty if they don't want to volunteer? That's a really good question. I agree. I think it's unconstitutional. I was with the other 4 judges that said that this is unconstitutional, and I think so. I think it is. We will find out possibly even tomorrow. My insider sent me an email saying they think it may come down tomorrow, the Obamacare case. Otherwise, it'll be Monday or Tuesday of next week. And so we'll see what happens. The Supreme Court already upheld the right of businesses under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act to be able to stand up to the federal mandate of Obamacare to provide abortifacients. I think it's really important. Hobby Lobby, they're my heroes. They did a big Wall Street article explaining how they are pledged and committed to shut down every one of their stores if they lose this case. And then they drew a line in the sand. I think the court saw it. And they realized, whoa, there's something wrong here. But we're going to say the federal government has the ability to be so draconian, so controlling, that it violates people's faith to the point that they shut down their businesses and pack up and become pilgrims somewhere else. And that's what, so that was a great case. It only applies to the federal government, state government, constitutions are ruling very liberally, and they're not bound by the federal statute. So that's a problem. But we'll see how it turns out tomorrow. I think it's very humane for us to want health care for people who can't afford it. But when you have mandates against individuals, particularly when it violates their beliefs and convictions, and they can provide the alternative health care without going through the exchange system and the mandates of the Obamacare system or the Affordable Care Act, then that's a problem. And I like frankly Ben Carson's approach. He has a great program, HSA, federal HSA system, empowering people to have medical choice, and then at the same time keeping the federal government from controlling their lives. I'm not campaigning for Ben Carson, obviously we can't do it. Just, there's a lot of great candidates. I'm sure running for office. Yes, sir.
Many of the cases,
Men and women.
that you alluded to involve the state and religion as distinct parties. Would it be too perverse to ask if the state itself recommends itself as a religion insofar as it reflects the attitude of any dominant group?
Hey, what?
As it reflects the attitude of any dominant group.
So like the government being a religion, basically having, I'm sorry.
In that it prescribes a certain set of beliefs or practices.
Oh, yes.
Or
Oh,
recommends.
you're right. And I think that's right. You're talking about the separation of church and state. When the state becomes dogmatic, in that regard, you're absolutely right. And it's like that's the Establishment Clause is all about protecting the church, it's the government control and punishment. Let me tell you something that's coming down. You will see this. First off, we just received notice about a week ago that this administration, federal administration, President Obama, is working with the EOC. Tonight, there's some great things I'm like portraying. There's great things I think personally he's done. But that aside, the EOC, where they're going to be basically telling all religious-based charities, Catholic charities, that you can no longer participate in federal programs to help the poor unless you will change your religious beliefs and hire as staff homosexuals, transgenders, non-repentant. I mean, people not, when I say homosexual, I mean someone with a sexual orientation, because that's a struggle. Okay, we all struggle with sin, we all struggle with our struggles. I mean, as someone who is engaging in a lifestyle in a non-repentant way, that's where the church draws the line. That's the church says, hey, this is wrong, and you need to repent. They won't be able to do that, and they'll be cut out from being able to participate in all these federal programs. And the only ones who will are people who have the ideology and the doctrine of those who are in power at the present time. And I teach the word in power at the present time because it sort of shows you where we're going. We also, I think, will see in the future, without question, an attempt by politicians, Washington, but also on the state level, we already saw it at the state level, to take away the state tax exempt status of nonprofit ministries, organizations, churches, parishes that discriminate based on their sexual orientation, sexual lifestyles, or transgender decisions. That's government control. That's means the government's going to give benefits and perks to those the liberal theology divergent from Scripture and the teachings of Scripture, and then they're going to punish those who do believe in the Bible and teachings of the Catholic Church or our other church. I have a problem with that. And then the government's no longer being neutral. And we want government to be at least neutral, keep their hands out of telling the people of faith how they have to live their life. There's a famous lady who's running for president. She recently came out as, not as tackle. But she recently came out, and even though she's a great spokesman and has a great track record and fantastic leadership skills, I'm sure, she came out recently and said, quote, when it comes to homosexuality and transgenderism, some places, some groups are going to have to change their religious beliefs. They're going to have to change their religious beliefs. And that would not have even been thought of to be said by anyone running for office or president just a few years ago. And yet, that mindset of conformance, of mandatory conformance, is very, very dangerous if we're going to have liberty and freedom in a free society. I don't believe in our society mandating and dictating everyone to believe the way I do, even though I'm totally convinced I'm totally right. But I believe in the freedom and liberty for us as individuals to respect each other's ability to disagree and to live our lives accordingly. To be able to robustly live our lives, to share our lives, to share our beliefs, and be respected as human beings in the process, and not be marginalized, punished, fired, losing your business, etc. That's the kind of challenge we're facing today. That's why religious freedom, I believe, is more attacked today than ever before. And that's very serious. Teacher, by the way, give me a signal like this one. It's time for me to. Okay. Yes.
Okay, going back to public schools.
Yes, public
And
schools.
State of California Race to the Top.
Yes.
And in that paperwork, they signed something on there, checked off this box that said they would help facilitate access to kids to their private records.
Right.
Are you guys involved in anything like that?
Common Core.
Yeah.
Yes, how many have heard of Common Core? Raise your hand. Okay, very good. Some people like Common Core, okay? And I know some people, teachers, 4 teachers I know, one of them really loves Common Core. I don't talk about it, okay? But he loves it, he thinks it's great. Another teacher thinks it's terrible. He's a public school teacher. Another one thinks it's marginal, another one doesn't like it. Common Core is something that's, I think, is an infringement on liberty and freedom and privacy. Number one, the privacy, because the information, it's not just your academic scores, it's everything about you is getting put into the system, and it's going to be charged to you as you progress and as you grow up into adulthood and continue career advancement. So there's a real concern I have for that. It's also being sent to a third-party entity in between the federal and the state and federal government. They don't have the ability to utilize that material and that data as they wish. I have no problem with that. And that's something that we challenge in litigation down the road as we see it facilitated. More concern is the dumbing down the academics. They're lowering the mathematics standards. In elementary school, they're cutting by 50% the classical novels that kids are reading. Now they're bringing out more critical thinking, reading, okay? They call it critical reading, where they give you an opinionated op-ed piece. It only has one side of the story. And there's no age appropriateness requirement. If teachers are able to really do a lot of indoctrination potentially, there are a lot of parents with traditional beliefs and values who disagree with. So there's a lot of policy Common Core. We have the City Justice, so right now we're going to be filing a writ in the near future on the right, actually for 2 weeks, to defend the right of parents to opt their children out of the Common Core state assessment test. So pray for us. So maybe probably, well, we're going to be moving on that. I'm just glad this isn't recorded. No.
I can edit that.
That was a joke. That's okay. That's okay. And so we're going to be doing that, and we're also recommending parents to form parental review committees to have to approve the suitability of any controversial literature that children are given, make sure it's age appropriate and balanced as well. So there's some things that can be done. A lot of things, we also have other states like Texas that are not doing it. More states are actually going to be opting out of it. And I think as long as we have some choice in the United States, we'll see at the end what prevails. So that's an interesting issue. If you have kids, something you want to think about. Any more questions? Oh, yes, ma'am. This is a great question. Right. Oh, yeah, the government's trying to make secularism a religion. Absolutely. Right.
It seems that it's not so much that they're trying to separate it, they're trying to make this what you have to choose.
Right. It's just one way. This is the way to believe. And everything else is whatever, hate speech or whatever. Right. That's the dogmatism that we're seeing play out in wherever we have not seen before. And that's very frightening, particularly when it impacts our lives. And even parents, frankly. We have parents, we have social workers that I think is a real example. It was in the state of California, a parent calls me, says a 15-year-old girl has come out of the closet. She thinks that these are the feelings that she has. And she could have those feelings. Sexual orientation, according to Kaiser Permanente, can be very fluid all the way up to your mid-20s, and even beyond. But this is where she's at. The parents have a Christian worldview. They're told, they call me, they say, social workers coming tomorrow to talk to me. And to see whether or not we're supportive of our children's, or our child's, lesbianism and her newfound lifestyle. And I said, okay, here's what you have to say to keep your child from being taken tomorrow. Because they will take your child if they don't really believe. And they'll put them with another couple with that background. And so I said, you need to say that you're supportive of your child, you're unconditional in your love of your child, and you just want what's best for your child, and you are want to be supportive of her wherever she is, wherever she's at. I said, try to say it in a way that's truthful, marginalize it a little bit, and then when they leave, wait for the school year to end, and then start your child through some positive counseling at your church, and have your child put into a private Christian school. Let me tell you what happened. He said, well, the Christian school that she'd go to, there's no way that she'd be probably allowed in once they found out that she was out of the closet. They probably would let her in. And I said, really, what school is that? What church? He said, well, it's XYZ church. Little did he know that God in his sovereign providence already had it on my schedule in 3 days. I was on a Friday to meet on a Monday with all the elders of that XYZ church in the state of California, and to specifically discuss with them the proper policies in addressing issues such as sexual orientation, transgender status, and how you deal with it. But that's a real struggle. If they had answered the question the wrong way and hadn't called me, they probably would have lost their daughter, and she would be all the more confused and with where she's at. And I think we as Christians, we have love and respect for people who, wherever they are, including those who have these desires and orientations. At the same time, we need to not to compromise individuals carrying out those activities in a lifestyle that clearly goes against what we know is right and wrong. Scripture makes it very clear in so many passages that we're held accountable. If we acquiesce to something that goes wrong, we're held accountable. On the flip side, we also need to show love, grace, and mercy to people who are going through this, and with humility, realizing that we are, in the past, or could be ourselves, very vulnerable to the same thing. I told my wife, I said, if you knew, I said, never mind, go sit down. But I said, if you knew how people, how men think before they get married, you never would have married me. The fact is, we're all have all kinds of thoughts, and we should have a humble heart, knowing that God's grace is sufficient for us, is also sufficient to reach out to people like that with what they're dealing with their struggles. So, almost went off the edge. What do you think?
I was curious. Doctors have to take something called the Hippocratic Oath. It's going to state the principles, decency, and so on.
Right.
And there's one part of that oath that says that a doctor cannot cause a woman to basically not have a child by using a certain instrument, right?
Abortion?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And some historians, one historian for a Roman emperor even argued that part of the Hippocratic Oath basically meant you couldn't do an abortion.
Right.
Now, I don't know what the interpretation is, how the Hippocratic Oath should be interpreted.
Right.
But my question for you is, does the Hippocratic Oath have any legal terms?
Does the Hippocratic Oath have legal standing? I'm not aware of it, of how the Hippocratic Oath has legal status. I think that historically, the medical profession, which is that they will take the life of the preserved life, has been most would not feel that taking a life unborn would be within the democratic bill historically throughout the ages. And I think that's real basic. Also, there are different philosophies and attitudes. I went to a gathering party for a doctor neurologist, a friend of mine, and this other doctor was invited, and he does transgender surgeries. And I said, really? I said, you ever thought about it? I mean, can we problem that from an ethical perspective? Doing a biological surgery, cutting off things because of someone's mental condition, not because of any biological state. And he said, well, that's what they want. And I thought, does Hippocratic oath, does that Hippocratic oath whatever they want? Or are there certain limits that cutting off parts of the body, things like that? When you look at it from a statistical perspective, the average transgender will not live to see their 50th birthday, live to see their 30th birthday, because depression and suicide does not decrease after a transgender surgery at all. So that's why you have Johns Hopkins Medical School banning the procedure recently, and other hospitals. So I think having that Hippocratic, I think is an important question, because the medical profession is not free from that oath, that higher law that they're held accountable to, even if something is legal under U.S. law. Very good point. Yeah, that's all I know. Who has an answer? You have an answer question. Yes.
When do you expect the Supreme Court to make a decision about homosexual marriage?
Yeah, I've been told they can come down tomorrow morning, and if not, then by Tuesday morning. We'll see the same-sex marriage issue. And the debate will stop there. Did Roe versus Wade stop the debate on abortion? Absolutely not. And in fact, American people from the age of 18 to 24 are the most pro-life segment of the voting population in America today, 18 to 24. So no, it doesn't solve, they may say from their perspective legally that the moral, ethical, humanity question of when is marriage, what is it for, that was already, I believe, established a long time ago. And the laws of nature, nature's God, I think will always support it. No matter how society or our laws may decide to ignore it. I think that's very basic. So
Will this make another politically popular decision?
Right.
And with Roe versus Wade.
Right.
Dred Scott decision.
Right.
Say, gee, it's not in the Constitution about
Right.
same-sex marriage. There's no precedent.
Exactly.
Therefore, we can make a politically popular decision.
No, you're right. And what's going to happen in the next part of the agenda is then to silence anyone who disagrees with their decision. How do you think that that's part of what's already going on now? To silence people, intimidate people who disagree. I mean, I see that all the time. All the time in my work. And it's striking because that's the kind of thing you see in free totalitarian societies historically. That's absurd. But out of that, we need to be willing to express ourselves with grace and compassion, and also have relationships and give love and respect to people who believe differently. I think that's a really important part of it as well. I spent 3.5 hours meeting with a transgender individual at a TV show. We're supposed to be arguing, debating. After I sat down and talked to him, I really like to understand you. We met for 3.5 hours. He cried 3 times, explaining all the pain he's still experiencing because they had his surgery. So that kind of taking that effort is part of our commission, if you will, being a strong light, being willing to have relationships, not compromising our truth, but starting it with love and respect for that person and listening, and then you can have a dialogue from there. But that's so important, yes.
Is it correct that till now only the courts have upheld gay marriage? I don't even want to call it marriage, but
right.
Only the courts. There's never an initiative on the ballot that the population voted for.
Right. There have been some states that have moved that way, legislatively through the initiatives. The majority of states that are deemed to be homosexual marriage states, it's because the courts dictated it. And pronounced it. The reason they did is because the Supreme Court, in the defense of the Nolan case, pretty much sent out blinking lights saying this is what they're better. So these other courts, have been following that signal. And tomorrow or soon we'll see if the Supreme Court probably follows through with that absent an intervention. But truth in the end, I think, is very powerful. And the indisputable statistically is the value of marriage. In terms of childbearing, etc. I went to the University of Texas School of Law. It's the most liberal institution in California. Yeah, and it's a great school, but it's very, very liberal. I mean, The complaint in Texas is saying, all these Californians keep moving to Austin. It's just so liberal. I mean, seriously. These Californians like beautiful things. It's the most beautiful city. So, in Texas. So here you have a state like the University of Texas, with a thorough study on what happens to children raised in homosexual families. And do those couples love those kids? Absolutely. And they can be not vilified for wanting to love those kids. I respect that. They honestly feel that they can do what's best. But the studies say something quite different. The studies say that children who are raised in a homosexual family have a much higher suicide rate, much higher pregnancy rate, and they also have a much higher homosexuality likelihood, even if they're not genetically related to either of these parents. So the societal, social influence statistically is right there. Another study, real interesting, identical twins. Identical twins where one child is raising one child comes out as homosexual, the other heterosexual. The odds that the second child is going to be homosexual is what? 9%. 9%. 91% probability they're not. They're identical twins. If indeed this is something that is genetically predetermined, then surely it would be like 95% correlate, but it's not. Instead, other factors like the breakdown of the family, the absence of father bonding, sexual child abuse, absence of healthy peer-to-peer relationships, those statistically are the primary factors in determining sexual orientation contributing to it. And that's so we as a society need to get out and understand it. Yes. One more question and I'm going to close out.
The Pope has recently issued an encyclical, Dacus, on the protection of our home, the environment.
Yes.
The Pope has said that this is now part of the social justice of the church, the environment. Will you push the Civic Justice League to incorporate environmental justice issues into its mission statement?
Yeah, good question. The Civic Justice League is pretty far away from environmentalism. We're being religious freedom, which is really busy for us right now. We're missing parents and family. That said, I would say I think it's, frankly, personally, I think it's the church and people of Christian faith, we should be leading the charge in terms of caring for God's creation. I think that being someone who is a conservationist in terms of preserving what God's given us is a part of respect for our Creator. I think that part of that messaging is very important, and I think the Pope is very appropriate in helping communicate that to a world that often finds Christians being somehow disassociated with caring about the earth. We, if anything, more, I think, conviction to care for what God's given us, because we see it as a gift from God, as opposed to an agnostic perspective, which sees it as an accident ball of fire by pure chance and having no value, no relevance, no purpose. I find our beliefs are much more compelling to commit us to be respectful for God's creation than that of a secular society. So I think it was high time that happened. Also, by the way, I know Billy Graham on the evangelical trend. He's come out and made the same thing. Pastor Rick Warren has come out and gave the same challenge. Not because we worship Mother Earth, but because we have respect for the Creator who graciously gave it to us and values it as a gift to us. And I think that's the difference. That's a very good point. So, and you've been really good with your questions, I appreciate that. It's really good.
I'm a lawyer, by the way, so it's...
Are you really? Awesome. Very good, very good.
You work for Roberta?
There's very few of us who do pro bono. It's a hard way to live life. Anyway, I want to thank you for letting me be here. If you please pass in those white sheets, it means a lot to me personally to keep you guys updated. And if we can ever serve you or help you, give us a call, let me know. If it's not in our mission, it's not our scope, I'll let you know that. And if it is, you can be assured that we'd love to help you and serve you. This is a great organization. I love what you guys are doing. And I hope there's some beer left. Thank you very much. God bless.